All right, welcome to NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the Buffalo Bills with Joe Miller, the host of Overreaction, the post-game show on the Buff Rumblings Network. How's it going?
Good, doing good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Any day I get to talk about football, it's a good day, right?
I agree with that. It's a good way to put it for sure.
Now, we're going to play a game, and it's going to be going along with your Overreaction name. And we're going to play a game. I'm going to give you a statement and an overreaction statement number one. And then I'm going to kind of let you go. I'm hoping I'm not going to make you mad, right? But feel free to get as mad as you need to. All right.
That's funny. Yeah, sounds good.
And unfortunately, I don't have any like fun music or anything like that. But
some Jeopardy tunes, no Jeopardy tunes
right.
for the background. Yeah.
No, I don't have all the money for the production quite yet. So
me either. That makes two of us. My intros and stuff like that are pretty lame because it's old music that I've written on graphics that I've made. So I'm right there with you, bro. So
the content's the most important, right?
Exactly.
Speaking of that, let's get into number one. Overreaction number one. The Bills were exposed in their loss to the Titans, and they can't win the big one.
That would definitely be an overreaction. And I would probably start with, if that was the big one, then the Titans need to be somebody needs to let them know they're winning the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
Because neither was that the big one. If anything, the Titans played up to the level of the Buffalo Bills. And I think what we've seen from this Titans football team is they're playing to the level of their opponent. If I need to remind anybody that they lost to the Jets a couple weeks ago. They definitely gave the Buffalo Bills everything that they had in that football game. And I think there's a matchup thing there that, they've played each other the last 4 years, every single year. It's 2-2 between the two of them. McDermott won the first two, and then he's lost the second two, or I should say his teams have lost the second two. They just match up well. And that game was a lot of fun. It was back and forth. I've said it several times this week that, for everybody in this country that watches football that isn't a Bills Mafia member, that was a great football game. Back and forth, 7 lead changes. Derrick Henry did his thing. Josh Allen had some nice throws. It was a good football game. The Bills defense actually played well. There was there's injuries the Titans had to overcome. But the Bills were definitely not exposed. That's a fun word. Josh Allen was 74% completion, 353 yards with 3 touchdowns. And the one interception he threw was because he got hit. Spencer Brown rather missed his block, and obviously the guy hit Josh Allen and made that throw go bad and got intercepted. But yeah, that's a little bit of an overreaction for sure.
Well, in the NFL, it's kind of what have you done for me lately, and everyone kind of sees that last play, that slip, and would an MVP do that type of thing? But that happens to even the best players.
Yeah, we tore that play apart on the Off Tackle with John Fina show on Tuesday night. Normally on Monday nights, with this week on Tuesday night, and even as John was talking about it, so Josh Allen did that bob up thing almost like a fake, because I think it was 3 games ago. It might have been against the Texans. He was going for a 4th and 1 like that and was going to sneak it, but he didn't. He pulled the ball out and ran around the corner for 17 yards. So I think in his mind, he thought that if he bobbed up like that it was going to fool somebody. They're going to bite. The problem is Simmons, he sold out. He was underneath Dawkins and he was ready to catch Josh Allen. The other part about that is Allen went to his left. He should have gone to his right. There was a perfect crease between Darrell Williams, the right guard, and between Spencer Brown, the right tackle. And for some reason, Josh picked left, committed to it, went left, slipped, and the Bills lost the game. So on an exciting play.
And that was more about the defense than Josh Allen then.
Yeah, pretty well. It was a decision as well. So it was both. I mean, the defense played the play perfect, right, as far as that goes. And then Josh Allen, the whole game, the Bills played into the Titans' game plan. So, I mean, it just seemed like the Titans were ready for the Bills, which is that's why we watch football, right? If every game was like college where it was 35-0 or 47-3, we wouldn't love the NFL. The fact that the Titans can beat the Bills, or pick a team that's down can beat a team that's up, that's what we want to see.
Just don't pick the Lions.
Yes, stay away right now, or the Dolphins probably. Just stay away.
True. That's true.
They just lost to the Jaguars. How awesome is that? That's crazy.
Yeah. All right, overreaction number 2. Josh Allen is the NFL MVP.
He's got some work to do. He's got some work to do. I don't know that he's there yet. So for me, what's interesting about 2021 so far is we watched that meteoric rise in 2020, and everybody has conversations about who's the next Josh Allen, who's the next. Oh, this guy could Mac Jones be the next Josh Allen, and Zach. Well, nobody's the next Josh Allen. There's only one Josh Allen. He's not superhuman, but he's a unique person that has played this position in the NFL. If he was playing like he was playing last year, right now, I would say yes, he's the NFL's MVP. To go along with that defense, because if that defense was playing the way that it's playing outside of this past Monday night, but there's conversations that could be had around that too, and I'll get to that. And Josh Allen was playing like he was playing in 2020, the Bills would be slaughtering people. It would be 50 burgers every single week to just about no points. For instance, had they converted 2 touchdowns in those first 2 possessions, that game's 14-0 halfway through the first quarter, and it's a completely different football game than 6-0. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's but I would say that he's got some work to do. Right now, Lamar Jackson is clearly playing a little bit better than him. It's probably Lamar and him. I mean, we know what Pat Mahomes is doing. He's throwing more picks already this year, I think, than he's thrown in any year of his career. It's not over yet. This offense is going to find itself and find its stride. The race for MVP isn't over yet. To be honest with you, Derrick Henry is probably in that mix. So
that would be interesting. He is unique football player. I can't remember the last time a running back has won it though.
You would say that. I do know who it is off the top. It just escaped me.
Yeah.
It wasn't forever ago. I did this because I'm gonna look it up. I did this only because, or I know this only because I did a show on it, on who it was.
And as you're kind of looking that up, Josh Allen has had almost those Heisman moments, that moment where he leaped over that player. I mean, and I don't know how much that really plays into it, but nationally that the discussion could be into that.
Yep. It was Adrian Peterson in 2012.
Yeah, and that was a 2,000-yard season, wasn't it?
I believe it was. Yes.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry had a 2,000-yard season last season and didn't win.
Didn't win. Yeah.
but Aaron Rodgers played pretty much a perfect NFL season, which has pretty much never happened before. So right behind him was Josh Allen. Of all the years for Aaron Rodgers to have the season of his life, it was the year that Allen had that season he had. But yeah, it is what it is.
So the Bills have really embraced him then, with even though he got that big contract, he's embraced the city as well.
Oh yeah, from day one. He'll tell you the story that when he came for visits before the draft, that he fell in love with just the fact that it was, of all the cities that he went to, it had a small town feel to it. Everybody's super interpersonal. Buffalo gets a bad rap. It's a wonderful city. It's called the city of good neighbors for a reason. It doesn't snow here as much as people think it does. It does snow, but it doesn't snow as much as it does in Syracuse. It doesn't snow as much. I mean, Cleveland gets about the same amount of snow that we get. It's not as cold here as people think it is. I lived in Columbus, Ohio for 13 years, and there was many times, they're 4 or 5 hours south of us, there was many times that it'll be 30 degrees in Buffalo and with the cloud cover, and in Columbus it's 25 because there's no clouds. So so he fell in love with this area immediately. And then when he got here, the funny part about that is Bills Mafia was torn. I was one of them. I didn't want Josh Allen. So when the draft happened and they traded up to 7, I wanted Josh Rosen. And most of Bills Mafia did, because Darnold was gone, Baker was gone, and I didn't want Lamar, and I didn't want who the kid that went to the Steelers. But so it was Rose. It was one of the Joshes. And after a 17-year playoff drought, we finally make the playoffs. Tyrod Taylor is our quarterback, and just the garbage that we had since Jim Kelly, and I use that term loosely because we did love Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the Bills Mafia loved Tyrod Taylor, and I was a Kyle Orton fan. But the reality was there was a huge segment, a huge population of Bills Mafia that didn't want a project. It's like, no, give me somebody that can play. Like we just made the playoffs. Our team is getting better. Just plug and play. Find me a quarterback that can play football today. Well, the Bills chose Josh Allen. And when they did, we all went all in on Josh Allen. It was like, okay, that's our guy. And then when you watch him play, it was probably the Vikings game in 2018 when he hurdled Matt Barr. And then he did the Superman over the pylon. That's when Bills Mafia was like, I like this kid. And then it's hard to not like a kid that owns the Dolphins, and he is the Dolphins' daddy. So,
well, it part of that has that been coaching as well, because he would almost like go too far, and then I believe the coaches kind of reined him in a little bit, didn't they?
Well, he's young. He's a young kid. He's super duper competitive. So he's at any given time, he's the guy that wants to win the most on the football field. Which, if we were young Bucks once, and we played sports, and
Mhm.
we know what it's like to be super competitive, or know the kid that was way too competitive. It's like, settle down, dude. It's only a game. And Josh, there's something to that sugar high Josh thing that Kyle Brandt says, that he can, if he lets himself get out there. And you saw it in that Titans game. That second to last drive against the Titans, all the Bills needed to do was just basically 9:45 left on the clock. They're already up one possession. They go down the field methodically. They don't need to do it fast either. If they kick a field goal or score a touchdown, that game's out of reach for the Titans. What does he do after the first down? He is holding on to the ball too long because he's looking downfield to get it all, gets sacked, 2nd and 17. He forces it downfield into double coverage. It doesn't get picked off. And then 3rd down, 3rd and 17, and the ball looked like it slipped out of his hand, and he chucked it and went over the receiver's head. So sometimes he can be, and he'll tell you, he'll admit it. He's humble enough to say, sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. And yeah, that's when the players grab him. Coach Dable grabs him. McDermott grabs him. Somebody's just like, hey, we got a whole team here, boss.
Well, yeah. I mean, so does the team have veterans like Stephon Diggs that's going to do that?
Oh,
other
yeah.
than the coaches? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Josh is the leader of this football team. Everybody knows it. But yes, he's humble enough and to allow people into his ear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the different side of the ball, we'll go to overreaction number 3. The Bills defense is the best in the NFL.
Yes, right now. And it's primarily because of the turnover differential. The two things, the turnover differential, which I think they're still at plus 11 or plus 12 in turnover differential, because Tannehill had an interception and so did Allen. So they were even in that game, I think, right? There was only one turnover per team. That coupled with just the rotation of that defensive line, what a find Gregory Rousseau was. And he's another one too. When the Bills drafted him, a lot of us were like, we need a cornerback. Why did we draft that guy?
Right.
And then they turn around and they get Boogie Basham right behind him. 1 and 2. They go end to end, like edge. Who does edge 1-2? Well, the Bills did it. And so far it's paying off dividends. And right behind them, number 3 was Spencer Brown, who we've talked about a couple times already. And he's our starting right guard right now. But I would say yes, with the development of Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano being healthy, Tremaine being healthy, Tre'Davious White being healthy, Poyer and Hyde are arguably the best safety duo and have been the best safety duo in the NFL for the last 3-4 years. And then you look at what's going on. Starla Tulele is a machine right now. That dude is playing like a man possessed. I would say yes right now, and everything's about right now. But I would say right now they are the best defense in the NFL.
Well, and I'm an Iowa guy, so I like Micah Hyde, and also Epinesa. Is he in the rotation as well?
So that was a funny thing from that Titans game. He was a healthy scratch, which was surprising. I was on air. We were doing a pregame show before the game, and when the inactives came out, and he was on it, and we were all kind of scratching our heads. So they sat him to dress an extra linebacker, whether for special teams or for whatever, and which was odd. And there's a contingent of us that believe that he could have had an impact in that game. So I don't know if you've watched his numbers or looked at him, but I think he's leading the league in get off. So from the time the ball snapped until he's out of his stance and wherever he's going. So he's leading the league in that. He's obviously been super productive already. I think he's the guy that injured Tua, right? On a sack or on a would-be sack.
Yep.
So no, he's coming into his own. He's actually playing like he's been a surprise so far this year. He's a big reason that if I'm saying the Bills are the number 1 defense in the league right now, he's a big part of that.
That's interesting that you would say that about a player that was a healthy scratch too.
Yeah. Well, who knows why they picked it? I mean, the Bills are in a very unique position, and this comes to that defense as well, where, most teams, these are our guys, and this is who we're going to roll in with, and we're going to play checkers rather. And the Bills can match up and line up how they want to match up and line up both on offense and defense. When you look at how deep their wide receiver room is, Matt Breida hasn't seen the field yet this year. Well, no, that's not true. We played the first game. So the Bills have the ability to kind of tinker and toy and match up against other teams, where other teams are like, no, these are our 22. And these are the 22 that are going to start, where the Bills are like, yeah, we're going to take that guy out and we're going to put that guy in instead. Didn't work against the Titans, but that's basically what they were doing.
Right. Well, this leads to overreaction number 4, and it has to do with the Buffalo backfield, which I try to stay away from in fantasy. So the Bills need to draft a running back in the first round in 2022.
Well, I would tell you this. I stayed away from them in fantasy as well. And every time somebody that in the draft, because I'm a Bills fan, so all my drafts are pretty much local. And every time somebody drafted one, I was like,
Well, yeah, Zach Moss was a healthy scratch game 1, but Did he have a death in the family though, or I thought that was something?
No, that was Dable had a death in the family a couple weeks ago, and then he had another death in
Oh,
the family this week. So his grandma died, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then his grandpa died. His grandpa just died. No, that was another surpriser. So we weren't sure if he was maybe injured, that there was a rumor there was an ankle, but now it's pretty much just common. All anybody says is he was a healthy scratch week 1. So we don't. It was never given to us as far as information goes. So in regards to this question, this overreaction, so the Bills need to draft a running back. We have two. We don't have an RB1. We have two RB2s, and it just is what it is, and it doesn't help them that right now our offensive line is not necessarily clicking in a way that it should. The 5 starters on the offensive line changed 2 games ago or 3 games ago, and they moved Darrell Williams inside, which has been good. They put Spencer Brown in, which was a huge surprise to Bills Mafia. What I would say though is you don't spend draft capital like that on a running back. So first round running back
right.
is probably not the best idea, especially when you look at Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams went in the second, and Javonte Williams is a legit football player for the Denver Broncos. So if we could get a guy round 2, we got Moss and Singletary in round 3. Alvin Kamara is a guy that went round 4. So I mean, it just kind of depends on who you get and where you get them. Do they need to? Yes, they're gonna have to keep throwing darts at running backs, in my opinion. Not in the first. Hopefully, not in the first.
Right. All right, overreaction number 5 here. The Bills need home field advantage in the playoffs.
Nah. You look at what the Buffalo Bills did last year. If that defense is truly the number 1 defense in the league, and the reality is you don't want an offense to come out hot at the beginning of the year, because typically that is an aberration. We see it all the time that weeks 1 through 5 in the NFL are a liar. They're a pathological liar.
What was it? The Steelers last year were they 9-0 and
11 and then
yeah.
the Bills beat they lost the game before the Bills, and the Bills beat them right after that.
Yep.
But I would say that this team showed and proved itself last year that they can go on the road and beat just about anybody. I mean, they went on that run, that tear after the Cardinals game with the Hail Mary pass. They went 8-0 for the rest of the season, and there was a lot. I mean, they beat Denver, Vic Fangio's defense. They beat Robert Saul and the 49ers defense. Like, they went in and throttled a lot of teams. So I don't think the road scares them. There was not a rumor, but there was a narrative out there that Josh Allen can't play in front of big crowds, and I think he's dispelled that rumor this year, because it was loud in Kansas City and they throttled the Chiefs. So right, so I don't think they need. That's why we don't have a dome in Buffalo. It's for the playoffs. I want home. If the Bills get home field advantage in the playoffs and they're not playing northern teams, the Bills should end up in the Super Bowl. They should be able to make it to where they're trying to get to. So.
Is that though still the question? The Chiefs maybe aren't who they have been. I mean, does that win? Is that win tainted a little bit with how they've been doing? Or
Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes.
Clearly
the Bills forced them into some mistakes, and they shut down Travis Kelce. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire went out early. Travis Hill didn't exactly have a big game. The defense played well against them. I would say this: there's people that were kicking after the Bills played the Chiefs and beat them. There were people that were kicking dirt on the Chiefs. Oh, their season's over. I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
I think they're going to find themselves. We'll see. And will it be too little too late? Because they didn't exactly play well last weekend either. It was 13-10 going into the fourth quarter before they kind of opened up the score, or in the late in the third quarter. I flipped over to it
with Washington.
Yeah, with Washington. So, and Washington has a stellar defensive line. I mean, they've got, they're spoiled as far as that goes. But I would say the Chiefs are definitely not out of it. But home, I think the Bills can go back to Kansas City and win. I think beating the Chiefs in Kansas City meant a lot to their psyche. It went from measuring stick game to, not only can we play with these guys, we can beat these guys. So, right.
Is there a team that you're worried about the most? Or
always the Ravens? Always the Ravens. So in the AFC, it's always going to be. I mean, Lamar is just, as much as the Bills had a game plan for him and shut him down last year in the playoffs, and what a freaking football game that was. And then Taron Johnson had that pick six, the 101 yard or 102 yard pick six. Lamar Jackson can mess your day up all by himself. So, I mean, when he has people hate that he's a really good running back. People hate that narrative hangs over him, but he is the most dangerous ball carrier in the NFL. And by the way, he's gotten better throwing the football this year, and they're letting him throw the football this year. So, the Ravens are always going to scare me, always.
Well, and they've got Bateman, rookie coming on too. That'll be interesting to see how he does. I like the Bills. I do like them, and I definitely like them.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, overreaction number 6, the Bills have the best receiving core in the league.
It's tough. It's there's a you thought that it was going to be a lot of people think Dallas, right? CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and the guys that they have.
Hmm.
And then when AJ Brown got hooked up with Julio Jones, people were like, oh my God, AJ and Julio Jones. The problem with any of those arguments is the depth. So
Hmm.
the Bills, are rolling out there Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley, by the way, all pro last year, and people seem to not want to think about the fact that he has led the league every year, like the last 2-3 years, in yards of separation, which means he's the most open wide receiver from not just from the slot, but from any position in the league. And then behind them, you've got Gabe Davis, who had a crazy good year last year and isn't even really seeing the field this year. And then behind them, there's guys like the Bills are super crazy deep at wide receiver, to the point that if they were to drop, if Diggs got hurt or if Sanders got hurt or Beasley got hurt, Beasley gets hurt, you're putting Isaiah McKenzie in the slot. Like they're just going to roll guys at you. And that goes back to that whole playing chess versus playing checkers thing. So I think they do have the best wide receiver core in the league, but the way that it looks is different. It's not Julio Jones and AJ Brown. They're amazing. To me, it's like, yeah, but we got 5 of them, right?
Well, yeah, in Julio is good.
Mhm.
He's a name right now, and
Mhm.
they've both been injured. Emmanuel Sanders, he's really surprised me. I kind of wrote him off in fantasy, and
Yeah.
he's really kind of come on. Is that more to do with Stephon Diggs and the attention he's taken away, or is Emmanuel Sanders really still that good?
I think there's just a connection right now between him and Josh. He's
Mhm.
talked about it that they asked him last week in his presser. They said, have you ever had a connection come up this quick with a quarterback? And the media is expecting him to go, no, Josh and me clicked faster. And he laughed and he goes, well, me and Peyton clicked pretty quick. Peyton Manning. He goes,
Oh
obviously
yeah,
they went to the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl.
oh yeah.
But he did say that he said Josh and I have clicked pretty fast. Like, and Emmanuel wants to be here. He loves being here. And I think it's just more of a Diggs is always going to get most of the attention, but I don't know that they're playing cover too high, like too high stuff, to play kind of trap stuff against the Bills wide receivers. Josh is a guy that if he can recognize what you're doing, whether zone or man, he's going to beat you either way. You have to figure out a way to confuse him so he doesn't know what he's throwing into. I think it's just been a situation that Sanders has been really open and Josh is finding him he's just been really open.
And he's a different player than John Brown that's been in
Yeah.
the past.
Yeah, he's better than John Brown. Bills Mafia loves John Brown too. John Brown came in here as a career wide receiver 3, right? There was a go route guy, and lo and behold, the dude could run the whole route tree, which surprised everybody. It's like, oh, this guy's a legit wide receiver, which is crazy that he doesn't have a job right now.
Right.
But super, super good, and he loved it here, and we loved him. But Emmanuel Sanders is an upgrade over John Brown, so I think the money was the issue with John Brown. I think he's I don't know what the numbers are. I know he was getting paid by the Raiders way more, I think, than we are paying Emmanuel Sanders. So
In expanding the receiving core, I would expand that to tight ends. What is this injury to Dawson Knox mean? And is he really that good? Or is Josh Allen kind of making him better than he really is?
well, Dawson Knox has been, I'll start here and say that he has been a fan favorite since the day that he was drafted. He's just got a charisma about him. Obviously, that Bengals game, I was at that Bengals game where the angry runs game. And the funny thing about that is Kyle Brandt would still say that that's his favorite angry run ever, as far as that goes, just what he did in that football game. But Dawson Knox has been wildly his own worst enemy. He went to tight end university with George Kittle and all those guys and Travis Kelce this past offseason. And one of the problems, and he admitted it before the season, was, Dawson would make all the hard catches. Like if the ball was coming in weird, or if it was contested, like he would make that catch. It was the easy ones. He'd always drop the easy ones. And he admitted this offseason, before the season started, that, he was having a problem when the ball was coming in easy and it's a layup catch. Like, oh, I've got this. He'd start peeking. Like, where is everybody? And then he'd, lose focus and lose the ball. He's corrected that. So I would say that Dawson Knox being away, we're not super deep at tight end. So Tommy Sweeney caught a touchdown pass in that football game on Monday night, and Tommy Sweeney is pretty much the next guy up. Like Jacob Hollister is now in Jacksonville.
Yep.
The question is how hurt is Dawson Knox? I don't know. I've heard mixed reports between quote unquote going to miss some time to Dawson Knox on Twitter going, it ain't going to be that long. So I think the amazing thing is they run that razzle dazzle play with Josh Allen and Dawson Knox. And Dawson Knox comes around the corner and throws him the football. And it was the worst pass you've ever seen in your entire life. And it's like, that guy used to be a quarterback. Are you sure? And then you find out later that he shot put it because of the fact that he broke his hand on the play before. So
Wow. Yeah.
could you imagine breaking your hand and then being like, Josh is waving the play off. So I don't know if you know this or not. He's like, no, we're not going to run this play. And Dustin's like, no, I'll get it to you.
Wow.
His hand's all mangled. It's like, yeah, can I find the bench, please?
Yeah.
Sub.
Yeah.
Sub.
Definitely sub. Well, yes, overreaction number 7 and leads kind of leads me to subs or whatever. The Bills will be able to sign all of their free agents. And what are some of the key free agents?
They just signed them all. So Emmanuel Sanders would be one. The question is he going to come back? He's already said that if the Bills win the Super Bowl, he's done. So if they don't win a Super Bowl, I don't know. I would love to see him come back. I'm trying to think of who's out there. Go ahead.
How many more years does Diggs have?
He's the one. So Stephon Diggs is probably, I think he's got one more year after this, but he's probably going to get a deal before that. He's another one like Tre'Davious White, like Josh Allen, that he's never going to be cheaper than he is today. Every day that passes, he gets a little more expensive. But the Bills, by and large, I mean, Isaiah McKenzie's out there. He's on a 1-year deal. So we've got several guys, but they're all low deals. You're talking about this is we spent
role players, right?
Well, they're role players, but that's not even what I was going to say. They're role players, but like we spend time as content creators telling the fan, that jumps up and is like, if only this dude will take a hometown discount. And it's like, they don't take hometown discounts. Like they're talking about setting up their families for the rest of their lives because they could be out of football next week. Like there's no, and then lo and behold, this offseason, player after player after player, hometown discount. Matt Milano signed for peanuts for what he should have been paid, like a 4-year contract. I remember where I was when that contract came down. It's like Matt Milano he re-signed, and that's the number. Are you kidding me? I mean, there's people that believe that he's better than Tremaine Edmonds, and so Tremaine's another one. So Tremaine's gonna have his 5th-year option next year. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what they're gonna do with him. But Diggs, Tremaine are the 2 big dogs out there. Star Lotulelei has one more season after this. I think he's going to make 22 million, but I don't know that they would re-sign him. Maybe they would, but I can't imagine that number that they would. The Bills, Brandon Beane has gotten very good at just backfilling this roster, whether through free agency or through the draft. Like Jerry Hughes is going to be gone, right? So Jerry Hughes is getting close. I'm trying to think of who else is even out there. And when you think of Jerry Hughes, you've got Greg Rousseau, Carlos Basham, and then you've got your guy AJ Epinesa right behind him. So they're going to let Jerry's been a member of the Buffalo Bills for a really long time. It's going to be hard to see him go, but they're probably going to just say, "Love you, bro. Don't go away mad. Just go away."
Right. And has Buffalo really been known for signing the players? I don't know if free agents haven't necessarily wanted to go to Buffalo, but
it's changed.
Yeah. So
so it's changed. There was it's the word is Siberia. Oh, Buffalo, Siberia, and it's like it's such a stupid word because Buffalo isn't any colder than Boston, Massachusetts. It isn't any colder than Detroit, Chicago. Like Green Bay, Wisconsin is colder than Buffalo.
And there's nothing to do up in Green Bay.
Right. Philadelphia average temperature is 6 degrees warmer than Buffalo. It's like what Cleveland is 2.5 hours sideways down the street. Like, what are we talking about that Buffalo is Siberia? It's not colder than it's just stupid stuff, bro. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and I've been to that area, Niagara Falls, not too far from there. And it's a great area.
Yeah, it's not Chicago. It's not Miami. It's not glitz and glamour. But if you want a place that you're going to be able to go to I saw Tremaine Edmonds at Lucia's on the Lake last Saturday night, and nobody bothered him. If you want to go to a restaurant and eat with your wife or your girlfriend, then this is the town you want to be in. If where normal cities, like, they're taking pictures of you. Like, I remember when Baker Mayfield was he was at a restaurant in Cleveland. It was all over Twitter, and people were sneaking photos of him, and he was I think at one point he was flipping somebody off in one of the pictures because he was annoyed. He's like, "I'm just trying to have dinner here. Could you leave me alone?" So there's just a different vibe. The fans respect the players. They're a part of the community here. It's just a different town. But are they going to get the big national State Farm or whatever commercial that whatever the commercial is that Baker has? No, you're probably not going to get that here, but you're probably going to like life a lot better unless you want to party. If you want to party and be part of the nightclub scene, then go to LA, go to Philly, go to Miami, go to one of the big cities. But yeah, but no, they're not going to have any trouble. Winning teams re-sign players. It just is what it is. So the Bills are going to be a winning team it should be for a very long time. They're not a flash in the pan at this point.
Well, a big part of that comes with overreaction number 8. The Bills have the best coaching staff in the league.
It's hard to say that. Bill Belichick is still out there. Andy Reid is still out there. There's a lot of great coaches out there. Sean McDermott's close. So he should have won coach of the year at least once already, especially when he took the team to the playoffs, the first year that he was the coach. But he's done a marvelous job. And it's more than just that. It's the staff that he's assembled, the fact that he's kept outside of, I believe, an offensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator. It's all pretty much the same guys, unless people have moved on to bigger positions. He hasn't necessarily fired anybody. The culture has changed in Buffalo so much. I mean, these players love. I mean, back to Emmanuel Sanders. In that presser, they asked him about Brian Daboll, and he's like, "I've played on I don't know how many teams. I've had I don't know how many offensive coordinators. Brian Daboll is my absolute favorite offensive coordinator ever." And he was going into why the relationship he's built. He's like, "That dude will call me." He goes, "I'll be in the hot tub at home, and that dude will FaceTime me just to talk to me for 5 minutes." He's like, "I love that. And that is awesome." And I'm like, yeah, that is awesome. That's what a coach should be doing, I think, as opposed to just talking business all the time. It's like your boss. You don't want your boss to be your boss all the time. Like, sometimes be a human. So there's just a different element and a different vibe. I love this coaching staff. I wouldn't trade him for anybody. But it would be hard to say better than Andy Reid, better than Bill Belichick, right? So.
Well, yeah, and they've done it over a number of years. Andy Reid has, and but part of it, Andy Reid, he evolved and he was able to give play calling over to Eric Bieniemy and other people under him.
Yep. Well, actually, you've got that backwards. Eric Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator, so he's giving the play design away, but he's still calling all the plays. That's the knock.
He is still calling.
That's the knock on Bieniemy. Why they believe that Bieniemy has not gotten a job yet is because he hasn't called any plays. But I think that's ridiculous. I think Bieniemy's not. I think he's going to get a job this year, as will Daboll. Daboll will be. I
was going to say, yeah. I mean, what was the? I mean, Daboll went. He was in on a lot of the interviews last year, right?
He had several. There was a couple that I think he turned down, or one or he pulled his name from, and then Leslie Frazier was also in on a couple. So he was a finalist for the Texans job.
That's interesting. Yeah, I forgot that Leslie Frazier was there. I mean, is the sense that he will get another shot at a head coaching position, or?
I hope not.
Agreed. Well, I mean, is that selfishly as a
yes?
Yeah.
I hope not. I hope him and Daboll stay forever. I mean, Dable's a Buffalo kid. He went to West Seneca High School, so he's from here. So my hope is that he turns into Josh McDaniels or to one of these guys that just doesn't want to leave. Like, I'm happy pay me money and I'll be the offensive coordinator for the team that I grew up loving, and we're gonna go win some Super Bowls, right? I mean, versus I want to be the guy. Like, does everybody have to be the guy and get fired? That doesn't sound like fun. And end up at Alabama as an offensive line coach like Doug Marrone. I mean,
pretty much. Well, and I'm sure, as a Bills fan, I mean, you've seen that. I mean, as a Bears fan, I saw that through the 90s, all these different, coaches. And it's so funny. Those who can't do, as coaches, now they are experts. I heard Dave Wanstead on Chicago radio talking like now that he's not a coach, now he's on the airwaves, he's an expert.
Right, exactly. That sounds about right. But the Bills have, much like the Bears, retired a lot of coaches. I mean, there's a lot of guys that aren't even in the league anymore that used to, coach for where was the head coach. Greg Williams, Mike Mularkey, obviously Marrone, like I said, is now in college. Like, there's a lot of Dick Duran.
I was going to say that we shared that. Yeah,
Jan Gailey's done. Like, all these guys, and none of them are even coaching in the NFL anymore. So it's just ruh-roh. But we found the guy. So that's it. And when they hired him, I'll be honest with you, it was like, Sean who?
Right. Well, in almost, for Buffalo, does that kind of work better that it was Sean who rather than,
it's the coaching carousel narrative, right? So every team goes through it that's bad. So the Dolphins are about to go through it. So they've got Brian Flores, and when he gets fired, it's going to be, we got to find a guy that's got experience, and then they'll hire a guy with experience. And when that guy fails, we got to find a young, impressive mind, and then they'll hire a young, impressive mind, Brian Flores, and then he'll fail. And it's like, we got to get a guy with experience. Like, it's just this never-ending loop and cycle. You just hire a guy. Just go hire a guy and hope he's the right guy, right?
And it's in Chicago as well. Matt Nagy, he was kind of the young, Yep.
So. And when he gets fired, if he gets fired, they'll be like, let's go find somebody with some experience. It's like, all right, whatever. Like, it's nauseating.
All right. Overreaction number 9. I think you might like this one.
All right.
Hopefully it's not going to make you too mad, though.
I haven't been mad yet.
Just wait. Here we go. Overreaction number 9. Antonio Brown would have agreed to the trade to the Bills if it was this year and this situation.
I would say that Antonio Brown would have wanted to come to the Buffalo Bills if it was this year in this situation. Brandon Beane is pretty much on record as going, there was no trade offer. We inquired, like there was some stuff, but it was like, I have a feeling what happened there was, it was more of a, these guys make phone calls all the time. Like they constantly are like, what's it going to take? Or what's this? I mean, that's how LaShawn McCoy got traded to the Bills. Basically, the Doug Whaley, Jim Manos, I think Rex was there, and so was the Pagulas. They're on their yacht in Miami. The phone rings, and it's the Eagles. It's Chip Kelly or somebody, the player personnel guy from the Eagles, and they're like, "You guys interested in Shady?" And they're like, yeah. What do you want?" And they're like, "We want Kiko Alonso and a pick." And they're like, "Hey," you know what I mean? Like, so I think a lot of times that's what happens. It turns into, well, what are you looking for? And I have a feeling that got leaked somehow. Like, it got to the agent or it got to somebody, and then Antonio Brown was like, "I don't want to go to Buffalo," and then the whole thing just blew up on Twitter. I think Brandon Beane is literally truthful when he says there was no offer. Like, there was no deal in place. There was nothing. We were, it just was what it was. So, but yes, I would say that he would want to come. Well, he's not going to leave.
Well, now he's not.
Tom. Right? I mean, he's not going to, he's not going to leave. He's not going to leave Tom in the Bucs. But if he was unemployed, I would think there's a lot of wide receivers that would like to play for Josh Allen right now. I mean, especially listening to Emmanuel Sanders, who's wholly impressed with, wholly WHOLLY, wholly impressed with Josh Allen as a quarterback, and he's played with Hall of Famers.
Who was that? Was it defensive back that really was trashing on Allen? Was it his first year?
Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah,
he's trash. Yeah, I called him trash.
Yep.
Then Josh Allen beats him.
Yeah.
He does everybody. That's part of that competitive thing too. Josh Allen doesn't forget that stuff. So I mean, it's he uses it as fuel.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at Antonio Brown, it was probably a blessing in disguise that they didn't even, try to. He wouldn't have fit into the culture either.
No, and that's the other piece too. The culture is so tight here. The Bills are. I mean, you're talking about a coaching staff that came in. Another. I knew right where I was the moment it happened, and they moved Sammy Watkins. And you're like, and then they move around. Like, hey, hang on a second, what's going on right now? Like, these are people that you're expecting to be in this franchise for a while. And it was clearly culture stuff. There was just culture fit issues, and they're not afraid to move a guy off the roster. Quentin Spain last year. So Quentin Spain got re-signed last year off of a 1-year deal the year before. And about week 3, he got benched for some reason, which is still a big mystery. And the rumor is that he got a little unsettled in the locker room, and the Bills were like, all right. And they bounced him out. Like, you're going to be a part of the team or you're not, right? I mean, everybody's going to get in line. So, yeah. Which isn't a bad thing. Getting in line is not a bad thing when the culture's good. Right. Well,
especially when you want to build a championship team.
Right.
Well, speaking of building a team, so this is overreaction number 10 here. The turnover or the turnaround that the Bills did in the last few years, that was the best front office, best turnover, roster turnover ever.
It's I mean,
it was pretty quick too, right?
I'm trying to qualify and quantify it at the same time without sounding ridiculous, because there's rosters that have been turned over, won a Super Bowl, and then basically never panned out again. There's rosters that were turned over and never did anything. I mean, look at the Washington Redskins that bought teams out of free agency for years.
Yep.
And then, there's rosters that have been turned over that have gone on to do great things. I think what's impressive about what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have done and their team and their staff is just the depth that's there. So we went from having some decent players, right? A quarterback in Tyrod Taylor that Bills Mafia loved, but he just didn't have what it took to get them past where they needed to get, right? There was just as awesome and as impressive of a person as he was and a good football player, he just wasn't enough. He wasn't Josh Allen, right? He wasn't Justin Herbert. He wasn't Pat Mahomes. He wasn't, pick one of these guys as far as that goes. Lamar Jackson. Good, just not good enough to change your quarterback. And then to go from this team in 2018. So you look at 2018, they had 9 rostered offensive linemen, Josh Allen's first year as a rookie. The next year, only one of those guys even had a job in the NFL, and they had a whole new offensive line. And it went from serious major depth issues with some good draft picks and a quarterback that's young and is a project and some, a couple guys here and there, they probably couldn't have gotten a big free agent in 2019 like Stephon Diggs, right? I mean, obviously they made a trade for Stephon Diggs, but regardless, you're probably not getting one. He probably doesn't want to come here. So John Brown is the guy you get. And then just to see where they are now, they have depth issues? Probably some small ones, running back, right? Which you can kind of cover, maybe at the guard position. But to your point, they've rolled this roster, and not only have they rolled it, and they've got starting talent returning 21 of 22 players. The Bucs are the only team that did better, returning 22 of 22. And oh, by the way, the 22nd guy is better than the original 22nd guy in John Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, John Brown. But what's more impressive is the depth. The guys behind, like the guys that are sitting on the bench, the guys in our Bobby Hart just got picked off of our practice squad. I don't know how that happened, but regardless, the guys on our bench could start on other football teams, and there's guys on our practice squad that probably won't remain there for very long. So, right.
And so are other teams kind of looking at them to kind of as the model now, some of these teams that have been struggling for a while?
I don't know. I don't even know. I would love to answer that question. I don't know what that means because I lived with an inept football team for 20 years. Like I don't, and you're a Bears fan. You're living in the middle of an inept football team. And it's like Mitchell Trubisky doesn't look that bad. You know what I mean? Like he got bounced out of Chicago as a winning quarterback. Think about that. Now, was he flawed? Probably. Yeah. I know for a fact from some of the content creators here, especially part of Buffalo Rumblings, Bruce Nolan, he did a big thing because there was a time there when it's like Josh Allen's just Mitchell Trubisky. And like he did a breakdown of him and Jared Goff versus Josh Allen. And Bruce was like, no, the things that they're asking Josh to do are vastly different than what they were asking Mitch Trubisky to do or Jared Goff to do. But still, he was a winning quarterback. You can't win football games with a kid that can win. I mean, he's accurate, right? He's mobile. So the cool thing about that story, this is a tangent, is the fact that he's kind of here almost learning and almost like in a reset mode, which is neat. I'm excited for him to see where he goes next and what he does. And he could be nothing, but I'm excited to see if because this isn't what players do. Players get run out of a town and it's like, I got to start right now. And then they get to the next team and they're pressing too hard and they flush out there too, versus going, you know what? I'm just going to step back and I'm going to learn some things. I'm going to maybe I'm going to hang out with a team that's really good at this for a little while. And then pick my next adventure from there. Not to mention, I'll be honest with you, as much as I like Matt Barkley as a human, and he's a good dude, Matt Barkley's not winning you 50% of the games that he has to play, whereas Trubisky is gonna. So if Josh Allen, God forbid something happens to that kid, this football team's still going to the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and we'll find out if that's coaching. A lot of that was with Trubisky was Nagy. He just didn't want to work with him. And he wasn't his guy, and you don't want to see that from a coach. And we'll obviously find out with how well he does with Fields this year. Does he still have a job? All that. The joke was, if the Bears had picked Mahomes at the quarterback, that he would be the backup on the Bills right now.
Well, the Bills had a shot at him too. The Bills traded away that pick to Kansas City, so that was a big what's the word, not faux pas, but mark that would come up on, stations as far as media coverage when the Bills are playing. Did you know that the Buffalo Bills traded away Pat Mahomes to, that pick that the Kansas City, and it's like, well, now that situation is, we could have had Mahomes, or we could have Tre'Davious White, Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds. And it's like, I'll take those three over Pat Mahomes. So that's just how I feel.
Well, yeah. And he is great. Mahomes is great.
Mm-hmm.
He would probably be great in most systems.
Yes.
But really, with Andy Reid, that's huge. And
talk about it.
Yep. So that's in Josh Allen. If you take him off of the Bills and put him on a different team, would he still be as good as he is?
The Jets, no. The Dolphins, no. There's an aspect of, I think it was just, he had the mental makeup, the physical, the thing about Josh Allen that's impressive. Do you golf?
Not well, but yes.
So you've golfed, right?
Yes.
So golf. So think about your golfing form, and just when you talk about technique and you're talking about mechanics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So golf is that thing where it's like, man, I'm hitting the ball, I'm spraying the ball, or I'm slicing the ball real bad, and so I'm going to go to the driving range. I'm going to work on getting my wrists over and get my hips through. So perfect, I fixed it. And then you get back out on the range and you've got that part fixed. Well, now all of a sudden your drawback's too fast, or it's too flat, or it's too high, and something else is wrong. Josh Allen has this really weird, unique ability to discover I've got a problem. So one of his problems was rolling to his left last year, actually rolling to his left by game 3. He had thrown some balls out there that they were just misplaced balls, and it just wasn't going well. And he said, I've got to get better at running to my left and throwing the ball. And it was a hip issue. He wasn't getting his hips open enough. Well, he worked on it for a week, and it's never been a problem again. So that's kind of the uniqueness about him. He's changed all of his technique and all of his mechanics. His feet are different. The beginning of this year, the Steelers game, and I think it was the Dolphins game, was the second game of the year, right? Both of those games, he was wildly inaccurate. And if you watch his base, his feet were too wide. And that was something that he fixed last year. He was throwing with a narrower base, which provides accuracy, allows you to get your hips through, just like in golf, stuff like that. So I would say, to answer that question, Josh Allen is probably not Josh Allen if he ends up on 3/4 of the teams in the league. If he ends up on maybe the other quarter and the coach is right, he gets to compete, right people around him, people that trust him, allow him to be who he is. That's a big part of it too. Josh Allen is a grossly different player now than he was in 2018. 2018, he was the best running quarterback in football because all he did was run. He didn't have wide receiver. Kelvin Benjamin he didn't have an offensive line, and Kelvin Benjamin was his wide receiver who got cut in the middle of the year. So he was snapping the ball and taking off. There was no designed run. It was snap the ball, take off.
Yeah.
So he's completely different now than he was. But to answer your question, I'm not sure that he is Josh Allen if he's drafted by the Jets, or if he's drafted by the Bears, or not the Bears, sorry, the Browns, or if he's drafted by, right?
I'd say the Bears too. Yeah.
The Ravens, maybe he is, when you look at Harbaugh, that staff, and who was their offensive coordinator? He was in Buffalo with Rex. It's killing me.
Yeah.
But it's sorry, it's escaping me. But same thing with Harbaugh and him. He probably would have panned out well as a Raven. But I'm glad we have Josh Allen.
Well, I could talk forever. I definitely have appreciated you coming on.
Yeah, dude, thanks.
Yeah. And I do have one kind of final question. Go ahead and make your prediction for the Bills this year.
So I'm still on record around as far as being 14-3. So I think they've got 3 losses in them. I had it being the Bucks, Chiefs, and Titans because those are the easy losses. So obviously we lost to the Steelers, head scratcher, beat the Chiefs, and lost to the Titans, which was another, in my opinion, kind of head scratcher. So I'm still on record. The Bills have one of the easiest schedules in the league for the rest of the season. So there's at least one more loss in there. They could beat the Bucks and lose to the Saints, or they could lose a game to the Patriots. I mean, it's any given Sunday in the NFL. So,
well, speaking of any given Sunday, is it just a foregone conclusion that any given Sunday, I don't know, maybe 100 tables will be broken in Buffalo, or
it's crazy, dude. I don't get it.
Is that newer, or where did that come from?
I don't know, dude. It's been around for years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's been around for a while. I mean, it's people just jump through tables. I don't even know that wrestling is big in this town. I mean, that's where it came from, right? It's a wrestling thing, right. And I don't know that wrestling is a big. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm a Buffalo kid. I'm a son of Buffalo, and I don't like wrestling. So I've never gone through a table. I'm slated, if the Bills win the Super Bowl this year, me and John Fina, the former left tackle for the Bills in the Super Bowl years, are going to go through a table for charity. But other than that, I've never put somebody through a table and never gone through a table, nor have I had the desire. I'm old and frail. So
I hear you on that. Yeah. I'd love to see that though. That would be great.
There might be Twitter video if it happens. I'd love to see the Bills win the Super Bowl. It'll be worth it if they win the Super Bowl. So
they're definitely a team that I root for. I like to see different teams, and I like to see teams that have that family atmosphere. And I really, Josh Allen is hard not to like. I mean, as we talked about, and
he's not smug. He's not a poor sport. So like when he's losing, he doesn't put a towel over his head and ignore everybody and get real crappy on the can. Like he doesn't do a Tom Brady. He doesn't scream at his players. Like there's just something about him. He's just a good dude, right? And not that there hasn't been other. Peyton Manning was that way, right? I mean, there's other players that have been that way in the NFL. Josh is just a likable kid. He's just super down to earth and normal. He's just it's hard not to like him. So, and I think it comes through even on TV, and it's hard not to root for him. Like you want him to be good, and then when you see him over and over and over again hit 3rd and 17s or 3rd and 15s or 3rd and 12s, like handing candy to kids. It's just like, man, this kid is unstoppable. Like, what is going on? And then obviously once in a while he does get stopped, but yeah.
Well, even the great ones do. And
Yeah.
yep. So,
Indeed.
well, I definitely appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have to connect again.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. And so everyone can find you where again?
So you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. And if you are on Twitter, please follow me, and I'll follow you back if you're into football. I have one guarantee: I follow everybody back unless you tweet porn, and then I'll unfollow you.
Exactly.
But I do 4 different shows for Buffalo Rumblings, which is part of SB Nation and Vox Media. I have a pregame show on Saturday nights called Time to Shine, which is just a call-in show on YouTube where people just come with me live and they give you their game prediction. I've got the Overreaction post-game show, which you talked about, that it also gets dropped as a podcast on Mondays on the Buffalo Rumblings podcast network, but that's also on YouTube. I've got the Off Tackle with John Fina show, which John Fina is a former left tackle for the Buffalo Bills, on Monday nights, where we break down the game. And then I'm on the Hump Day Hotline on, it's a lot. And then I've got the Hump Day Hotline on Wednesday nights at 9:00 with Jay Spence, the King from the Code of Conduct. Yeah. So
I say, I mean, you really don't have time to jump through tables.
If you Google Joe Miller, Buffalo Bills, I come up. We'll just
Awesome.
say it that way.
Well, I appreciate you coming on with me, and I look forward to connecting. Once again, this has been NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the Buffalo Bills. Thanks again, Joe.
Yeah. Thank you. Go Bills.